Welcome to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we are coming to you live from Greenbuild in Los Angeles, which is incredibly exciting. This is our first venture into LA for Digital Builder, and I'm very happy to be here. And today, we are having our first conversation digging into the joys of residential housing and kind of the state of the world and a lot of really innovative ways that we can help manage what many would consider a housing crisis in the United States. And so to help tell that story, I'm joined by Edie Dillman, the CEO and co-founder of B.Public Prefab, and Vamsi Kumar Kotla, the founder of ReMo Homes. How are you doing today? Feeling good? It's the first day of Greenbuild.
Excellent. Can we just say go Dodgers 2 days after? Yeah, right? We're in LA.
I wish I'd been here sooner.
Yes, it's been a crazy with all the Dodgers mania. I don't know if you heard, like they're going for three-peat.
Oh, really?
That's what the thing is. Welcome to LA, but please don't mind our traffic.
I'm going to do my best to not be in a car for the next couple of days. And overall, we're having a bunch of fun here. So let's get into the joys of the questions I've got for you. I'm going to be a master interrogator today here on Digital Builder. Edie, could you start us off by just giving an elevator pitch of your organization? I'd love a little bit of context for our audience to help them understand why I've chosen both of you to, help me through this conversation today.
Yeah, you bet, Eric. And thank you for having us here. We love talking about what we do. B.Public Prefab is a little bit different of a company in many ways. We are a women-owned public benefit corporation. So we have products and services for the AEC world, specifically for new build in residential construction. But we approach construction differently. We're looking at what is the highest and best we can build in every opportunity. And so in that, we provide panelized construction. We do full structural, insulated, wrapped, weather barrier and air barrier, vapor open panels. So think Legos for construction of anything under 3 stories. So we build across the country. And we work directly with architects to specify not just carbon sequestering structural envelopes, but for low energy, healthy, and resilient homes for everyone. So we're really here to change how we build, the materials we build, and also bring back joy to what we do and raise the quality and the expertise in the industry. Well, we try and meet that residential crisis, right? We have to build quickly. And we find that all that pre-designed and working up front allows us to raise a house in a matter of days rather than months, and then allow our local contractors to finish those homes beautifully as they would. So we're just replacing the framing of that structure, and then we step away and everything is built traditionally. So it really is that transitional offsite component. It's not the whole building. It's just that high performance shell for net zero or passive house or lead for homes, getting that air tightness perfect and making everybody really comfortable year round with very little energy.
And I think the joy and the change are 2 big aspects that I kind of latch onto with your story. Like construction is a stressful industry, and I know that most of the folks that do work in it are passionate about it, but with all the challenges afoot, it's challenging sometimes to take a look at that and just feel excited about what's coming. And so I think organizations like yours kind of play a big factor in that. Vamsi, I'd love it if you could kind of give your elevator pitch as well and kind of give me some context on, chose you to sit in front of me today, or give the audience that context rather.
Very, very excited to be participating here and excited that I'm next to Eddie. It looks like a very accomplished company. Thank you for giving me this honor and privilege to be here. To give you a little background, California is, in a way, like, a power center for innovation. But unfortunately, we're also basket case for housing, homelessness crisis, wildfires, and everything like that. So ReMo Homes was born out of this frustration. A group of us, veterans from AI, semiconductors, aerospace industries, to say, hey, this is not acceptable in a place like California. So we created ReMo Homes as a mission-based company to make resilient and sustainable housing affordable. So not in 10 years in the future, but now. So with that, we're fundamentally rethinking what housing is, how it's being built, how it's permitted, how it's financed, how it's delivered, the whole shebang. So we are unique on the sense we are funded by the California Energy Commission with a 3 million grant to execute our mission. And we're supported by various national labs like NREL, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and even corporations like Schneider Electric and PPG. So we put in like tens of thousands of hours in engineering and developing of these homes. We got our first home pre-approved statewide across any of the 16 climate zones in the state of California, any of the 40 orientations, any wildfire zone, any wind load zone, seismic zone. First in the history of California that a home has been able to permit it statewide. And now we're setting our eyes on doing some pilots. And at the same time, building, this is a single family, single story home, but in a place like LA, we need density. So we just started a road mapping a 3-story low-rise multifamily home as well, so we can build in the city.
I appreciate that baseline, just helping us kind of figure out the broader scope of the contributions both of your organizations are bringing into the pressures that are coming in residential housing. And Vamsi, I was hoping you could share your perspective in a little bit more detail about the state of residential housing specifically and in affordable housing and all of those challenges that we're facing. I think you touched on California specifically, but housing more broadly, like there's a lot of things happening right now, and it's a challenging moment, I think, not even just in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. So we feel that like housing is broken in multiple ways, right? The build costs all over the world outpacing inflation. The operational costs are definitely outpacing inflation. And yes, California is an example. Back in the day, cost per kilowatt hour used to be 20 cents, not too far ago. And in some peak times, it's 50 cents per kilowatt hour. And people's income didn't go up by 150%, right? And then the third aspect is the carbon footprint, which is if you're trying to leave a planet Earth in that how we found, I think we're not doing justice in how we're building. There's way too much wastage. The homes are, yes, in general, buildings are not very energy efficient, and there's not enough, like they don't generate their own power. So housing is broken in many different ways. We are a very California-based company, but it's universal. Having said that, I'll give one example. 2018, we had one of the biggest fires in the state of California called Camp Fire in Paradise. That's 7 years ago. Only a third of the homes got rebuilt, and half the population is left.
Yeah.
That's acceptable. And it's happening right now. This year here in LA, not too far from here is Altadena. A lot of people don't see a future or don't see the means. They're underinsured, uninsured, or they don't know how to construct a home. And they're selling their homes to other people, or sometimes developers who are taking advantage of them and moving out. So it's a multitude problem. It's not affordable, it's not resilient, it's not sustainable.
And that comes close to my heart as well. Where I live in Southern Oregon, the Alameda fire happened in 2020, and we're still trying to rebuild from what happened there. The cities of Talent and Phoenix, large portions of those, both cities just burned to the ground. And the crunch and the pressure on all of the remaining housing has swelled prices across the board. And the folks that are not of considerable means just don't have the ability to step back and find a plan B. We're making progress. There are things starting to open and builds being finished. But to your point, the speed to market earlier, Edie, is incredibly important as well. I mean, this happened in 2020. I'm sitting here in November of 2025, time-stamping this episode, but that's unacceptable. It just takes too long to rebuild. People need to have equitable and affordable places to live. And that's just full stop. And I'm grateful for the work that both of your organizations are doing, because I think we're moving the needle. We're pushing things towards making that a reality for more people, because only the affluent don't deserve housing. That's unrealistic and unreasonable. But the way the market is and so upside down has just put us in a really unpleasant and uncomfortable position.
You both bring up really good points. I mean, we have a crisis to begin with. Millions of homes and residential units that are required for the population we have. At the same time, we're having these climate disasters that are taking a huge amount of housing stock out of established neighborhoods and have to be rebuilt. It's a deeply complex problem. There are a lot of things that we can point to that have driven us to this point where we're not building nearly enough to house the people that we need to house and house them comfortably. And I think we talk a lot about what does affordable housing mean? Because a lot of people will talk about the square foot cost. And that's not ultimately what's really in the long term going to make it affordable for people to live there. Like we're thinking about things about maintenance and certainly utilities and health. So meeting that need and creating solutions for those problems have to be holistic in how we look at them. And I come to this work from workforce development and looking at the problems sort of in our economy and the skills gaps. And for us, a lot of those issues, again, it goes back to that joy, but it's bringing people into the trades and into sustainability and being joyful and feel like they really have impact and power. So how do we refill 30 years of telling people to go to college and don't go into the trades? And right now we're facing a 20% drop in trades because of people aging out.
Yeah.
So we have to be innovative about it, but we also have to create jobs and housing that people really care about and want to build back better or build better. So I think we've got a lot of work to do, but we're having amazing strides at this moment. I think people's eyes are open. They're collaborating beautifully, and communities are asking for better and asking for solutions. And I think a lot of people think about policymakers as being a barrier, and we're seeing municipalities and states changing their tune on that and looking for solutions and ways to do things smarter and create a lot of housing.
Yeah, and you make 2 points here that really resonate for me. And in one, since I talk about the commercial side of things a lot more often than the residential side, like total cost of ownership and long-term facility ownership comes up a lot in that space because of the way that owners who put together 20, 30, 40, $400 million buildings think about their facilities is very different from folks who are just owning a house or maybe buying their first house or their first condo, and the perception is different. And like that overall ownership cost is really meaningful long-term as far as maintenance and renovations. And you shouldn't have to renovate your house repeatedly, but depending on the build quality, you might be dancing in that space sooner than you'd really expected. As a semi-recent homeowner myself, I bought my first property 3 years ago. There's been a lot to learn as that has gone, right? Just didn't really know. And it's hard to know until you're sitting into that seat. I'm optimistic right now, but to your point as well, the long-term challenges with labor and the perception we've unfortunately had painted on folks working in the trades is an unfortunate one. And that's a challenging barrier to cross as well. There's so much to be said about somebody who can come out of high school, go straight into working for an apprenticeship where they get paid to learn how to do a skill. And then depending on the market they live in, they could be making 6 figures in the first 5 years of their career. And they don't walk out of university with $120,000 in debt. There's a lot of onus on folks who do work in the industry to make these opportunities known. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. But I think the perception is changing, and I think we're getting there. But to your point, like there's still a lot of effort that we need to put forth to change these perceptions and help people understand just where these opportunities are and the challenges that are coming from it. And Vamsi, I've got a question for you, and I think this is the $1 million question, and I recognize it's kind of an unfair one to pose to you in the scope of a 45-minute conversation. But can you tell me some of your thoughts about how we can successfully balance affordability and sustainability and scalability effectively when building new housing or renovating existing facilities? Because we're almost at odds. There's so many factors that are challenging to consider at once. And so where the heck do we start, especially considering all the challenges that we've touched on so far? I'd love it if you could kick this off. And then Edie, of course, I'd love your perspective as well.
I feel it's a false choice, at least in the context of volumetric modular. You don't need to have a trade-off. You can have it all, right? Sustainability, affordability, scalability, and all. However, there's some exceptions, right? Not all sites are suitable for volumetric modular. There's limits to customization without where you have to retool the factory and everything like that. But for the most part, it would work, right? A lot of parcels in California, like at least in LA, like 45 foot wide and 150 long. And you can build a standard low-rise multifamily product for that. We can do it all if the developer or the homeowner has some flexibility on customization. And the reason we can do that is a big part of construction is soft costs and labor. You can't do much with the hard, like, the material costs, unless we have volume and you can source directly, so you're not paying three times the markup, three times the transportation cost. So there's opportunity there, but the biggest opportunity is in this soft costs, right? Like, engineering, architecture fee, permitting fee, and with some exceptions, like, impact fees that you have to pay, whether it's like, customized or standardized home, can substantially reduce the soft cost. And there is a rule of thumb in modular: if you can do something in the factory, that is three times more efficient than doing in the field, because the men, and but women too, materials, machinery, and methods are a lot more easy to control and optimize in a factory. So that's where the affordability can be generated. That's where the scalability comes. And especially the good thing about the standardized build, people are like, oh, I want customization. But imagine, at ReMo, we design around stock things, around stock doors, stock, like, MGO boards or drywall, stock steel and everything like that. The reason, and standard, right? Because you're not having a lot of offcuts and wasting these materials. And plus, down your material down to screw and nut and bolt, then you exactly stock them up and you're not, wasting or getting people stolen and everything like that. So I feel there's a huge opportunity with volumetric modular within some limits to execute on all these things.
I appreciate that too. And I am grateful that folks are having a more honest look at modular and prefabricated options than they had in the past. I distinctly remember some of the prior general contractors that I worked at, where when modular and prefab came up, they would look at, like, all right, well, we can, look at our casework and our cabinetry and in aspects of the building, but they never really considered it for the bigger picture scope. And there was an inappropriate negative stigma tied to the methodology and the approach. And that has changed pretty considerably in the last 5 to 10 years. And part of there's just been a lot of pressure, but I think the level of control that you're speaking to earlier really makes a big difference there when we're considering the safety aspects of building something in a factory, or the efficiency and the reduction of waste. All of these factors are a lot more manageable than the surprises that you find out in the field when you're building something stick built from the ground up.
Right. If I may add one more thing, and that's something Edie touched upon, and I love her perspective and her take on it. When you simplify and standardize your design, production methods, and engineering, one of the things we're focusing on is, can we open these jobs to women? Because construction has the lowest penetration of, like, women trades in this thing. And second thing is, someone, like, affected by justice. They had, I don't know, possession of some controlled substance and sent to jail for 3 years. Now you're bringing back to the society. Is this someone where you can easily teach and train them and bring back to society? And the other thing is, again, going back to women or people who have young children or aging parents, we can provide daycare centers, senior care center, pet, and everything like that, and bring more of these potential people into the fold of manufacturing. We just need to use some innovation to address this problem of, like, trade shortage. And modular has some ideas, and I would love what Edie touched upon.
And the more women we can bring back into the industry, the better, because, like, how outrageous would it be to just ignore half of your potential workforce on some arbitrary means? Like, we need folks that are capable of doing the work, and these people are, and we just need to give them the opportunity and make sure that there's considerations and equitable approaches to however you deploy the workforce in the field. And there's a not great stigma tied to working in construction, and in some aspects it's been justifiable historically, and I think all of us have to play a part in taking and in fixing that problem. And I've said this before to folks on Digital Builder: if you are in a position where you can call out bad behavior that is impacting people's ability to meaningfully participate or feel safe on a job site, like, absolutely do so, because not everybody has that privilege. And unless you point this out and make sure that the environment is equitable for everybody to work in, nothing will change. And that's a very big challenge to unpack. But Edie, I also want your perspective here. I know we've unpacked a lot here, but I want to, what your answer to the $1 million question is too. Like, how do we consider all these factors and really deliver on the promise of affordable housing that's also sustainable and equitable and scalable? Like, it's a big question.
It is. And as a business owner, you might think my answer is unique, but I actually think we need it all. I think the scale of the need and the problem for housing is so large that it's not a silver bullet. Like, this is a shotgun approach of, as we just heard, every project is not appropriate for a full modular solution. Every project is not perfect for a panelized solution, but we absolutely need all of them. So we're not going to get rid of some site built. We're not going to get rid of all of these different varieties of materials, because the reality is what we need to build across so many different climate zones across the US, from rural projects, which we do a lot of projects in rural communities, the demand, the form, the scale is different than our urban projects. We really need to invest in all of it. And I think not siloing our innovations, not siloing the work that we have done and the research, and really open source and sharing, so that we aren't redetailing every foundation across the country and spending all of that upfront soft costs. Like, we really need to aggregate the best and go past code whenever we can and create the most resilient, sustainable solution. But it is all of us working together and creatively. It's why being at Greenbuild and these like amazing professional conferences are important, because we need to know, we need to get away from our computers and our offices and see what's happening out there, and to network and find solutions that work well for our own practices and the partners who want to supply. We were talking about fire before. These fire communities that we work with and in, we're very fortunate to be working in California, Colorado, New Mexico in these fire rebuilds, is the amount of sharing of really meaningful content and storytelling around how people rebuilt and who they worked with, and sharing that knowledge is what we need across the entire industry. We really need to be looking at what is the highest and best we can do and employ for that project, and go and build as much as we can. But I think, going back to what you were just talking about, the opportunity for offsite in workforce development and creating jobs, it's everyone, and calling in everyone, that this is not going away and the market opportunity is so huge. But it's also, we're not requiring people to own a diesel truck, to have a whole set of their own tools. Literally, you can walk in the front door, apply for a job, and see an entire career path and out into the field in a place that's safe, where you are trained. And I think that kind of calling in and inviting a whole host of people to explore this industry is what we need, because we need a flood of talent and we want them ready to go for full careers.
Yeah. And to your point as well, we don't do this by ourselves. This isn't one company. This isn't one vertical. This isn't one region or even one country. Like, these problems and these challenges are worldwide, and we aren't going to be able to solve the challenges in front of us, whether it's tied to residential housing or being more sustainable with regards to the commercial side of things, or somewhere in between, without everybody being very transparent about how we move forward, but also being very intentional about how we adopt standards and, to your point, codes and everything else. Right now, it's convoluted. And let's be real, in the United States, there's no standards that apply from state to state, much less municipality to municipality. I feel like there's a lot we can learn from our friends in Europe and Southeast Asia and other regions, because they have ISO 19650 and a lot of standards that folks just stand up and go, here's the baseline for our project. And that doesn't define everything, but it does give them a wonderful starting point in a common footing that they can build on and reuse. And when we have to start from scratch every single time we do a new project, it's really hard to move the needle forward and learn because everything is new, everything is different. And that's just not the path forward, whether you're doing something that's tied to more of a prefab or modular construction or something a bit more traditional as well. Like there's a lot of work to do. Edie, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you ensure the right amount of flexibility on site for builders, especially in residential when applying prefab and offsite construction to how we build. I've heard historically grumbling from folks who worked with this technology early on where they go, oh, it didn't fit. Oh, it didn't show up right, or it doesn't work. And there's perceptions there that I'd like to do away with. And so how do you make sure, one, that people don't have that archaic approach or thought process, I guess? And then two, in residential especially, stuff changes on site. Like, how do you account for that as well?
That's a really good question, Eric. How do we change people's perspectives is a good one. For the way we build, so panelization, really Legos made out of wood and cellulose, and they're 8 feet wide and we can go 26 feet. So we have a component that goes together and builds on site. Similar to other things, you could say a brick is a component. We know the dimensions of it and what the engineering of that object is and how we can employ it on site. Similarly, we're creating usable materials that just happen to be pre-assembled, kind of like your windows and doors, in the same way that you can have a very high performance or a high finish window and door, and you get to specify that from the design. And so we're very similar in that way that, and we don't have just one component. We have a whole series of walls. We have a whole series of insulated roof panels. We offer floor cassettes that are structural and fully insulated and airtight as well. So it's a real mix and match. So we're still in a space that for each home, a residential multifamily project, or we just did a lecture hall, you're specifying first the material that you want or the performance level that you want. But fundamentally, it's light frame code construction. And so where you would employ that, you can specify a panel. So we're just taking a portion of the build. And for us who are really interested in low energy, high comfort, net zero even performance, is taking that airtightness layer that's so hard to track down on the job site, and we're delivering it in our components. And the thermal bridge free is delivered with the components. And so then it's just assembling together, and you've got the structural thermal envelope, you've got your airtightness, you've got your weather barrier already there. And then everything else gets to be what the client praises the builder for. It's all the finishes. So we're not doing any electrical runs in our panels. Nothing is hidden except for the cellulose. We're not doing any plumbing. So it really is introducing probably the biggest transition for our builders is that you're now using a service cavity. But for those of us who are really watching that airtightness and know how much performance we get from just having that perfect airtightness, we're pulling all of that inside where you can see it, and you're limiting the number of penetrations. And so it's a simplified form. And again, it's much faster putting it together. So we just take that slice of performance and construction and deliver that. So no finishes, no plumbing. We're really just taking a portion, and that's why we talk about it being a transitional offsite solution, because in a lot of ways, like your brick, like your ICF, it is a component that's utilized, but it doesn't stand alone.
That's such a thoughtful perspective to offer, though. You can tell folks, like, just go one click bigger. Like, okay, like this is like a brick, but it's a really big brick. That's just a bigger component of what you're doing. And you're communicating the expectations, and they understand the standards and all of the codes that you're adhering to. And especially since everything should go together very cleanly and clearly based on how it's built. Now it's just one less thing to think about. Like, okay, you've got to put up a wall either way. Do you want to have a pile of things in front of you that need to assemble into your wall? Or do you want to put 4 things up that turn into the wall and then you're done? And I think that's easier to sell once you back into it and help folks understand, like, this isn't just a messy Jenga where, okay, we've got a bunch of parts and we got to slap them together. Like, this is precision with the level of flexibility necessary in the field to account for whatever changes might need to happen in the finishes that come after the fact as well.
Absolutely. And our R&D team is, they're brilliant. They've created a line that's what we're really proud of, and that works very well. But our process in R&D and every new release is including direct comments in the field experience from our builders.
Yeah.
So we're building to make their lives easier, to create a product and a system that really works for them. That's where our success comes from, because we're partnering and building something that they want and even improving on what they already like to make it better. There is a transition in the industry. And because of that, we've actually created a whole training program for builders. So they come out to our shop and we do building science and do hands-on classroom with them. But then we get out and we do OSHA training with crane safety, because it's the brass tacks of, okay, now what are we going to do? You've got a beautiful design. Let's make sure it goes up very well. So the success of our work is really hands-on with our partners.
Yeah, and I love that you're considering the folks that are doing the work so thoughtfully as well, because I can't think of a faster way to frustrate or alienate a superintendent or somebody who's been building and has 15, 20, 30, 40 years of experience, to make them feel like your perception is their experience doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. It's complementary and an essential aspect of how we build, regardless of what technology we bring forth. The technology companies, whether it's a software company or a physical material company or whatever it may be, the organizations that do unintentionally or intentionally bring forth that perspective of, we don't need our superintendents anymore and their experience because we've made it so that's redundant and unnecessary. That couldn't be further from the truth, first and foremost. But good luck getting them on your side to use your materials when you've put them in a position where they feel irrelevant. Like it's just not a good business model. Vamsi, anything on your side to add to that? I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, it's a loaded question for manufacturing, because the bottle you're drinking, the tablet we all use, the phones we use, they're all standard, right? But they have some customization. You can load different apps and you can have a different skins and everything like that. So we're very mindful both the limitations of volumetric modular and also the aspirations of a homeowner, right? Homeowner, it's very personal for them, like for their homes. So they want to have a say on other things. With that, we put a lot of effort. For example, the model that got statewide pre-approved, it's called Supremo. It's 3-bed, 2-bath. 1,360 square foot. And we put in a lot of thought on what we can customize without having to alter the floor plans, have to resubmit to state for Title 24 calculations for seismic wind load. So that means you can change, obviously, cladding, colors, types of windows, types of doors, appliances, flooring and everything like that. So we're giving like almost unlimited number of options for the finishers, and then appliances and like fenestrations and all that. Having said that, what we're working in the future is, how do you design the design software so that we can easily change, still be regulatory compliant, think through supply chain resilience, think through transportation, think through installation, everything like that. So I'll give an example, right? Like, we had this home was interested by a developer, and he's like, why don't you just add 4 foot to this thing? Like, what a big deal. We do this because in traditional construction, everything happens in 4 foot, right? Like your drywall and a lot of these things 4 foot. We just add it, or even carpet comes in like 12-foot increments. But hey, look, we tend to have a single sanitation hookup. We tend to have a single power hookup. And this comes like fully ducted, right? So we can't randomly add, thinking like it'll fulfill the scope requirements, fulfill the HVAC load requirements and everything like that. But we know this is important. So building software tools on how much we can push. When we say yes to the homeowner or to the developer, we thought through compliance, we thought through supply chain, we thought through shipping, installation, everything like that. So we're taking a different perspective. And we're also very inspired by panelized companies such as B.Public Prefab. So, not everything, like because of site compatibility or site access and a few things like that. So we're going to be launching in the near future, like in a couple of years from now, we will be selling our insulated metal panel. They're fully finished on the inside and outside of it. They're cladded, they come with insulation and everything like that. So that way, a homeowner or architect or someone want to work with us and get the same high performance and things like that, we can sell these panels. And last not but the least, and something you touched in passing is retrofits in earlier question, right? So for them, panels are obviously great. And the second thing is we're developing something called MEP pod, which is very common in commercial buildings. Your mechanicals and electrical and plumbing are condensed and compacted. One thing for cost reasons, efficiency reasons, and maintenance on all that reasons. So we're developing that. So it can be used for retrofits. So you can, when you're trying to go all electric or just, you have this HVAC from 30 years ago, which is very wasteful and everything like that, we can use this part to swap out their equipment. And second thing is they're doing traditional build, but they can use some components because it's going to take a long time to change the industry. Construction is one of the very slow changing. Everything happens 15, 20 years increments, not like semiconductors where by Moore's law, you double your capacity in 2 years, right? So with that, we're going to be supplying these MEP parts for retrofits and also for traditional builders.
I love your baseline here, and you've actually teed up my next question very nicely. When we spoke originally, you mentioned technology as a big aspect of the way you build. And so I'd love to hear if you have any additional thoughts about the role in tech in design and construction. But I think also, could you share your thoughts about the role of technology after the facility has been built? Like, we got into Internet of Things and digital twins and a lot of other really fun stuff. And so I'd just love to hear a little bit more from you on that.
Yeah, so traditional, unfortunately, I feel that, some of the brightest people in the world are these architects and engineers. But the way they're compensated is really messed up. It's billing hours. So they love doing project by project, right? So I had a friend who worked for this, one of the biggest companies in the world doing this airports kind of thing. And I asked him, how long did it take? And he said 2 years. How many people are involved? He said, so and so. And I calculated back of the envelope, they put in 1 million hours of engineering in designing those things. 1 million hours. That is more engineering hours than building the tallest tower in the world, which Burj Khalifa, right? So with that inspiration at ReMo, we're like, we should not be starting the process when the customer gives you cash and ending it when the customer gets a COO. That's not the wrong way. We're putting tens of thousands of hours into material selection, understanding what kind of typologies are needed, what kind of square footage, amenities, and everything like that. So our process starts well before we identified a potential customer, right? In thinking through the supply chain and regulatory aspect. And the second thing is, you asked about how do you take care of the customer after the home is built? Home is one of the biggest purchase a person makes in their life, if not the biggest purchase.
Absolutely.
Right? And it builds intergenerational wealth. And in LA County, unfortunately, we're a renter majority county. And I feel very sad that a lot of people don't have the privileges facing rent and they never build wealth. Typical home builder, what they do is they give you a bunch of printout of your warranty cards and manuals and goodbye. And they provide the least warranty required by either state of California or Texas or Florida or something like that.
Oh yeah, they want to go away. The house is done. We want to go now.
And the new modern ones gives an either USB or PDF, right?
Yeah.
So we said that's not cool. So if you look at, I'll tell you a little story, right? I have this EV car, and a couple of years ago I had a problem charging, and I called the EV company. They're able to diagnose that the charging is not the car; it's the charging cable in 30 seconds. Why don't we expect the same with the home? So with that, we're going to be doing a virtual twin, not as designed, but as built. That'll tell you where your guts are, like your plumbing, your electrical, your mechanicals, your fire suppression system, your insulation, everything like that, for multiple reasons. One is first forecast when this would possibly fail, what's the life cycle of it? So you can work and do maintain around it. And B, if something does happen, you're not actually taking a stud thing or opening the drywall to see this is where the leak, and you actually know the whole thing, how it's constructed, so that it's much easier to maintain. We all want to learn, and you talked about IoT sensors. We want to learn how the energy is being used, how water is being used, the air quality and humidity and everything like that. The reason is we want to close the loop on this, right? How the homeowner is using it, so we can inform our design and technology team and designing the next home. So that's where, like, using it, A, provide more value, and B, iteratively improve the next model.
And I love where your head's at with digital twins and residential specifically. Like, I speak about this at commercial all the time, and it's gaining a lot more adoption. It's not a huge adoption level across the world right now, but it's part of the narrative. And there's a lot of very progressive owners who are deliberately requesting this because it helps them maintain very large scale facilities in a way that is far more challenging on paper and in binders and CDs and all the other stuff you get, when your facility is handed over to you. And you have even less visibility, of course, when a facility is 60 or 80 or 100 years old. And for example, my house being built in 1960, if I want to figure out what's in the wall, I have to cut the wall open, or I got to cut a hole and stick a probe in there and look around. And that's very frustrating. And I found some surprises in the 3 years that I've owned that property. And I would be incredibly grateful for a digital twin of some level of detail that I can update as I update the facility. And it helps me really manage and maintain my home. I'm also a tremendous nerd, and so I really like technology. And so I have smart water sensors all over my house and smart speakers and locks and all this stuff. But I think there's also an education conversation that has to come for folks to help them understand that this technology is actually available for them in a residential setting, because I don't think everybody has that perspective and that level of knowledge. And so it's an interesting moment right now where I think, tech nerds like me are pushing that envelope further. But the example I like to use is I had leak detectors in my basement. And I told you about this story when we first met. I have leak detectors in my basement where if there's water intrusion, it alerts me both by beeping, but it also makes my phone go crazy and everything else. And I am so grateful for those sensors that were very inexpensive, because one day at 2:30 in the morning, my basement started flooding. And what cost me $300 of mitigation to manage that could have been $30,000 or more. And I tell a lot of my friends this, and most of them are like, I didn't even know that those existed. And most of them have bought them. And that's just a little example, a very small snippet of what's possible. Edie, I'd love if you have any additional thoughts on just that bigger, tech curve, especially post ownership.
We look at it for certainly monitoring your health, air quality inside, or your energy use. And we're really focused on not requiring those things to know how your house is doing or your building is doing, and requiring less of this. This is an incredible show to go look at everything you can have on your phone to monitor and control your home or building. But for us, what we know in terms of resiliency is building it in so that you don't have to monitor, right? So like our technology is really wood and insulation, and that's permanent. We geek out a little bit because we're doing passive house that it's, physics isn't going to break. And that's really important to us, especially if there's going to be an interruption in power or a disaster or just a really bad day in your house, that these technologies are permanent and don't have to have a battery backup and don't necessarily have to be connected to our phone. So in a lot of ways, we're kind of going back to craftsman technology of what we know, things that are natural for us to live in and maintain. And I think that's an important technology, is thinking about that maintenance. Leaks do happen. I'm so sorry about your basement. I'm glad you had the monitors. But we know that, there is water intrusion sometimes. And we want to make sure that the technology or the materials we're using are resilient, that you can repair them. That these are things we know 50 years from now, we're still going to have a saw, a hammer, and probably a screwdriver to do those repairs. So in a lot of ways, we sort of back up and look at it in sort of a conservation first approach, that we're not anticipating like the efficiency of our homes is going to be based on an app that would have to be updated. It really is around the technology that is like the oldest and most known. And then those additive programs where we know that they can be changed out, right? Yeah. Your mini split can be replaced when it breaks down, but that it's that conservation first, and then have a lot of fun with your battery backup and put that solar up there.
I'm over here chuckling because one of my favorite things about Digital Builder is to be able to get the diverse perspectives as well. And I appreciate you being very forthcoming after Vamsi and I just nerded out really heavily about like, we're in the technology and we're going. But you make an incredibly great point in that I'm very aware that in 2 days, the manufacturer of my smart sensors in my basement for my water might go out of business and suddenly those don't work anymore. And it is a very important point to consider when you make the choices of whatever level of tech deployment you bring into your home. And I go down the rabbit hole because, like I mentioned a moment ago, I'm a nerd and I think it's neat and it's helpful and enjoyable for me to have all of that extra information. And especially as somebody who travels pretty frequently, it's good to know if I'm not home and my basement starts leaking and all of these other things. But to your point, this isn't a requirement to have this as part of your house. It's something that I've just chosen to do because I find it to be interesting. And you're bringing it back to the resiliency of the property you're building. It is an astute point as well, where somebody might not have the technical savvy to use all of these things that I'm geeking out about right now, or the interest, and in making it just come down to, I can rebuild this easily and quickly because if there was water intrusion, it's not a big deal because the drywall hasn't sucked it all up into the world and I have mold everywhere or whatever might happen to have. And like, that's a very good point. So I think we've covered two sides of the technology spectrum here. And I'm very grateful for that. Like this is what's fun for me. I love these conversations. Well, I know we're running on time right now. I want to be mindful of that. So I got one more question for both of you today. And Vamsi, I'm going to kick it to you first. What is one tool that you use on every project, no matter what you're working on? And it doesn't have to be construction related, but I want to hear it. Like, what's your constant tool?
It's a hard question. We actually have two tools, but I'll keep it concise since we're running out of time. One tool is called House of Quality. So the way typically product development happens is it's just a collaborative process, but there is no science to it. He said that's when you're building people's like most important thing that are homes and they're trying to do it thousands at a time, we have a little bit more science to it. So the way we look at it is with House of Quality, you have the goals. It's affordability, sustainability, resilience, scale, time, and all that stuff. And then you have these features. It could be solar panels, it could be heat pump, it could be energy efficient windows, and million other things like that. So we score these things like that, which is fastest way to get to these goals, and like in any number of combinations. So that way we have a method to this madness and stuff like, I'm the CEO or someone is a co-founder, someone is like CTO. They're not pulling rank, but we codified it and standardize it. That's, we call it a House of Quality. This is actually developed by a very esteemed professor from UC Berkeley that we were lucky to get hold of. The second tool is something called the True Idiot Index. So it sounds funny. It has its origins in SpaceX. So the story goes something like this, right? So SpaceX trying to bring down the cost of payload, right? It's sending stuff out to the low Earth orbit. But one of the cost factors is these engines, these rocket engines. And one of the things they realized was these nozzles of the rocket engines are extremely expensive. So that, and the idiot index is basically the cost of an end product divided by cost of the raw materials at scale. And that's coming over 100. The reason is they're using highly polished mirror finish like nozzles. They use special alloy and everything like that. And they realize we don't need a special alloy. It doesn't really affect the performance. We don't need this at a tight tolerance. We don't need things. This is just steel. We'll just use regular steel. We'll machine it ourselves. And they're able to bring that idiot index from an order of like magnitude from 102 to down to 2. So the reason this is important is if you look at a home, forget about the land cost and permitting cost. That's whatever. We can't change them. If you look at the hard construction cost, that number is ridiculously high right now. And we're trying to bring down, because if you look at a home, how much lumber is used, how much is steel is used, how much wire and everything like that, that's like more than 10. And I feel that we can bring it down to like 2 or 3. And so that means sourcing directly, using less of it, and make sure that we use as much stock product as possible, and doing other engineering and design feats to bring down the idiot index.
I like it. It sounds like both tools allow your team to be really intentional and effective, tackling some very big challenges. So I appreciate you sharing those there. Edie, how about you? What's one tool that you use in every project?
Don't I have to say Revit? Should I just say Revit all the way through?
Nope. You don't have to say anything.
Well, it's true. But you know what? This is not what you're going for, but it really is human power. Like our greatest superpower and our greatest tool is our staff. We have people at all levels of the company influencing the R&D, influencing the sales, influencing the direction. And it's really the heart and soul of what we do is that sort of human-centered, sort of conscious capitalism of what is the highest and best we can do together. That really is the tool that we harness, is the people on our team and where they want to take it. So yes, it is tech enabled. Our BIM is incredible, and we're using lean both in our design and our company practice, but also on the manufacturing floor. But it really is focused on that collaboration and really being focused on the passion of this project, which is around sustainability and saving this planet of ours, creating housing, and creating really meaningful jobs in the AEC together. So our tool is our people.
I like it. And that actually does hit the mark. The tool doesn't have to be, a hammer or a piece of software.
Maybe coffee.
Coffee fits too.
People, yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me on this episode of Digital Builder. For everybody out there listening, if you haven't figured this out right now, I am your host, Eric Thomas. You can find our show on YouTube. We are video first, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And until next time, goodbye.